I stand here today asking for this august body to adjourn in the memory of John Robert Lewis, an American icon, a public servant to the highest esteem, an individual who demonstrated on a daily basis that love will conquer all the evil in the world. An individual who, when you look around and you look at the Black Lives Matter and all the youth in this country that are activated, it was through his example as a 19-year-old who went to Georgia and got involved in the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King as a teenager. Many times we attribute people like Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy and Julian Bond and individuals like that for the sit-in, but it was the young folks who really sat down. John Lewis sat down for us to stand up. John Lewis stood up so we could enter places that we couldn't go before. John Lewis was arrested over 40 times in his life during peaceful protest, similar to the ones that we see today. And it's somewhat sad that some of the federal response is similar to what we saw in the 60s, especially when we talk about the crossing in 1963 of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where John Lewis came within inches of losing his life. His skull was crushed by a billy club, by state troopers, the same state troopers who yesterday escorted his casket and his coffin across that Edmund Pettus Bridge, a symbolism of the movement and the growth in this country, but there's still much to do. I'm honored to have met Mr. Lewis during the course of my life. We were fraternity brothers. We're proud members of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and I was always honored to interact with him, and he would always call me my brother. So I'm honored to have served through a fraternity, a fraternal order with Mr. Lewis, but I'm more honored to have met someone who lived a life of love, of generosity, an individual who had the courage of a warrior, the fierceness of a warrior, but a heart of an angel. A man who could forgive the KKK individual who nearly beat him to death. Some 40 years later, they met in his office in Washington, D.C., and not only did he forgive him, he hugged him, and he says, "I love you, my brother." That's who John Lewis was, that's who he is, and we should all strive to make this country a better place. An individual, again, who stood for civil rights, voting rights, but most importantly, for human rights. I ask that we adjourn in the honor of John Lewis.